Good evening, Recharge. Sarah Nolan here, and we are at day 3 of our self-care series. And I'm super excited about tonight. This is one of my favorite parts of this topic. But before we get started, just let me know, can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay? How's everything looking and sounding? And I've got a lot of questions for you. So make sure that you're in a place where you can really pay attention and answer some of these questions, because I want to really find out what's going on with you guys in regards to this topic. Hello, Tess. So glad you could make it here. So let's see. So yeah, tell me if you guys can see me and hear me okay. Hey, Jenny. Is a sound coming through? Okay, cool. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about why we unintentionally, like the real reasons we unintentionally avoid the habits and the practices that help us to thrive the most. But let's just recap what we talked about yesterday. So yesterday, we talked about some questions to ask before even addressing self-care. And so basically, these questions were leading us to what really makes me thrive the most? What does it mean to really thrive? So think about that right now as we dive into today's topic. What does it mean for me to really thrive? How do I know if I'm thriving? And what are the requirements for me to thrive? Everybody's got something different. You know, what are my relationship requirements for thriving? What are my physical health requirements for thriving? How about my career requirements for thriving? What are the circumstances that help me to thrive the most? And what are the states of the emotional states that help me to thrive the most? So before we dive into the why we might be avoiding these things, let's talk about what the thriving practices and habits really are. So tell me, I want to know in the comments, tell me what you think are the practices that help you to thrive the most. I just want to get a feel for like where you guys are at with this. What I see a lot of people talking about is, you know, things like going to yoga class, going to the gym, getting nails done, getting massages, getting facials, things like that. And so those are really helpful. Taking vacations, those are really helpful. And we're going to go even deeper. And I'm going to share a few things with you that will make a bigger impact than those. Jenny says meditation. Awesome. Yes. So whenever I'm looking at life changes, like things that make a really big impact, I like to look beyond the actual strategy, like beyond the actual tactics, and look at what are the what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, we want to look at the general lifestyle, right? Because meditation is huge for self-care, but like, why do we meditate? What's behind the meditation? The principle behind meditation is setting time for yourself, scheduling time for yourself, setting aside, carving out like 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour And so it's not just about the meditation, it's about carving out time for yourself. Carving out time for yourself to focus just on yourself. So that is huge. So we're going to look at the principles behind these different self-care practices. Getting meditations. That is, again, carving out time for yourself. Setting boundaries is one of the most important self-care practices that you can use. Setting boundaries, carving out that time, telling people no when you mean it, telling people yes when you mean it, but you might still be a little bit scared. That's taking care of yourself. That's setting yourself up for success, for thriving. So when we look at these principles, let's think of a couple more things that aren't specific, don't require specific behaviors, because it's going to be different for everybody. Some people may really gravitate towards meditation, and other people, it may not be so much about meditation. But the biggest thing is to carve out time for yourself and make that sacred time. You are a sacred person, and you deserve to have sacred time allotted to yourself every single day. So what's another principle that we can apply to this? So setting aside a time for yourself, that's one principle. What's another one that can make a really big difference? Hey, Lawrence. How about listening to yourself? Like really paying attention to the cues from your body, from your intuition, from your spirit. What if you really paid attention to those things and you made that a priority? And that when you feel those nudges or those taps on the shoulder, that you stop everything and you listen to those things. And when that nudge or that tap on the shoulder is requesting that you do something that's out of your comfort zone, that you trust it. Like say you are involved in like a mastermind and you're growing faster than the other people in the mastermind, and all of a sudden you feel like you don't really fit in anymore. You feel like it's not a good fit. You don't really resonate, but you stay out of obligation. And as you're staying out of obligation, you're getting these taps on the shoulder saying, this little quiet voice says, excuse me, these people are holding you back. These people are, not really playing a positive role in your life anymore. And so the thriving practice would be to stop everything and listen to that voice and say, okay, I'm going to be really brave, and I'm going to, let this group know that I'm leaving. That can be really hard for people sometimes, especially, people like us who are, super compassionate and, world changers. We're all about serving other people. It can be really hard to reject another person or another group. But really good, solid self-care, like thriving care, is setting those boundaries and listening to those nudges and following through with that, even though it's uncomfortable. So self-care can be very uncomfortable. Self-care isn't just about, staying safe and being comfortable. It is about pushing. There's an element of pushing yourself over that comfort zone. Really good, thriving self-care is growing. Think about taking care of a plant. This is pretty interesting. I have not been in the past the best gardener, but I'm getting better. And I had this garden, in front of my house, And I planted all kinds of things. I planted, what did I plant? Scallions, celery, scallions, cilantro, lettuce, mint, cherry trees, lemon trees, an avocado tree. I planted all these things, sunflowers, and they did great at first. And all of a sudden, after a couple of months, I noticed that they just stopped growing. They not only stopped growing, but they started to die. Like all the color came out of them. They started turning yellow, and they started turning just like withered looking and just like not much life in them whatsoever. And I was like, okay, this is weird. I feel like I'm giving them everything. You know, I'm giving the basics, right? The basic survival needs of plants: water, sun, soil. What more could a plant want, right? That's sometimes how we treat ourselves. I'm feeding myself. I'm showering myself. I'm sleeping. What more could I possibly need, right? But these plants were not thriving. They were dying. And you could say like a lot of people say, you're either growing or dying. Well, I would say you're either thriving or dying. How about that? So these plants were not thriving. They were dying. And I got this idea, and I said, well, maybe they need some fertilizer. And so I went and got some fertilizer, and it was like some of the best fertilizer there is. I swear, the day that I put the fertilizer in the soil, I started noticing a difference. They started coming to life a little more. And every day after that, I fed it a lot, you know, to kind of get them back on track. And now they're starting to really thrive. And then I went a step further, and I gave them some positive energy. You know, I put my hands around the plants, and I just allow positive energy to emanate from my body. And I, you know, tell it good messages and stuff like that. Like true hardcore gardeners, that's what we do. If you want the inside scoop on that. And that's what I do anyway. So how can we apply that to our lives? And are we giving ourselves, you know, the bare essentials to survive? Or are we treating ourselves, are we setting ourselves up for thriving? And so let's go now into what is the real reason we avoid thriving. We avoid those thriving practices. And if you are, you know, super successful with your business, and, you know, you're thriving in your business, right? But then oftentimes when we're really thriving in one area, we tend to neglect the other areas. And we feel like we sometimes have this belief that that's why we're thriving so much in business, because we're allowing ourselves to neglect other areas. And sometimes it's a little bit less intentional. Sometimes we think that we are taking really good care of ourselves, when in fact, you know, we're just not. We're just more in survival mode. And we're like doing things, you know, we're going to the gym, we're eating our healthy meals, we're taking vacations, and it's like, yes, I'm doing these things to set me up for thriving. But in reality, those activities don't necessarily fix any deep level problems. They help us to feel better. They help us to like put out fires and feel better in the moment, but they're not necessarily solving any long-term problems. So can you tell me, what do you feel like are some reasons for you that you haven't been setting yourself up for thriving, like practicing these thriving activities? Like things that you know, we talked about principles of self-care and thriving, things like setting aside time, carving out time, things like setting really good boundaries. But then let's get back into like some specific practices. Like Jenny had said, meditation. You know, if you know that meditation helps you to really thrive. I was talking with a client pretty recently about, he was getting a lot of anxiety and, was kind of overwhelmed by that. And I was like, when's the last time you did your energetic adjustments? And energetic adjustments are these, it's kind of like meditation where you actually manipulate the energy in your body so that it's more balanced and more even, and clears tension, releases stress. So I asked, when's the last time you have done your energetic adjustments? And it was like very sparse, if anything at all. And it's like, okay, if you know that this helps you, why aren't you doing it? And, this happens to all of us. That happens to me too sometimes. And, it's helpful to come back and say, okay, why, if I know this works and I know it makes me feel amazing, makes me feel really like thriving, why would I not do that? Why would I not do that every day of my life? Why would I not be like obsessed with doing that particular thing? Say it's meditation or energetic adjustments or, getting, whatever that is for you. Going on dates with your partner or your spouse, going camping with your kids or whatever that is for you. Those things that make you feel amazing and help your business to stay organized and help you to be like show up more empowered in your business. I mean, the most effective thing that I've seen for that is the energetic adjustments, because what that does is it helps to physically release that tension from your body as well as your mind, and it helps to consistently adjust your beliefs to make sure you're always in the most empowered belief system. So one of the biggest things that I've seen people say is time. Like, I don't have time. I got really busy and I forgot about it. And, the time thing really isn't always a factor. It's rarely a factor with this, and it goes deeper. And so these are the most common beliefs that I see with people who haven't, yes, Dana says our unconscious belief systems, I still make excuses for them because of money sometimes. Getting better. Yeah. So sometimes our self-care, thriving practices have to do with money, and then we'll say, well, I don't want to spend the money right now. And so that can get in the way too. Yes. So this is so common. I know very few people who do not have an issue with this. And it all comes down to our belief systems. And really, you can trace this back to when you were a child and how your parents practiced self-care and how your parents treated you around taking care of your needs. Like, think about when you are in school, you've got to go to the bathroom. You're not allowed to just, if you're in like a normal public school, you're not allowed to just get up and go take care of yourself. You can't just get up and go to the bathroom, right? You have to wait until everybody's back from the bathroom. You have to get a hall pass or bathroom pass or whatever. You have to ask permission. You have to ask permission 5 days out of the week for 12 years or 13 years or 14 years, depending on when you started school. You have to ask permission to take care of yourself. Think about that. Think about the programming that you have been indoctrinated with. 14 years of your life, 5 days out of the week, you had to ask permission every time you wanted to take care of yourself. Get a drink of water, you have to ask permission. Go to the bathroom, ask permission. Eat a snack, ask permission, right? So we're conditioned as children that our personal needs are not the highest priority, that the other person is the highest priority, right? So it all comes back to our inner programming. Yeah, Daniela says, I was told to be still and speak when spoken to. You guys, these are very real programs, and everybody's got them. Like if you went to school, you've got this programming. But the good news is that you can easily, with the right tools and processes, you can easily reprogram those things. So here are some common beliefs that I see with people. This is how they show up as adults. Like it all starts out when we're kids, typically with, how our parents treat us around taking care of our highest level needs, and how the schools treat us around our highest level needs. Okay. How about I'm not worth it? A lot of people don't feel worth it. I just saw somebody comment on that today. Christy, who's in the inner circle, she had commented on something that she'd like to help to improve through these series, improve that belief of I'm not worth it. I'm not worth this high level care. Gosh, think about the way you care for yourself teaches other people how to care for you. Think about that just for a minute. If you're married, or if you're in a relationship, or you're attempting to be in a relationship, how do you want the other person to care for you? And you let that person know. We tell the other person how to care for us based on how we care for ourselves. We send those cues. We're leading that relationship. Dana, you're so funny. All right. So I'm not worth it. That's one of the top beliefs that I see come up. I don't deserve it. How about this one? Focusing too much on me makes me a bad person. How many times were you told that when you were a kid, either at school or from your parents or grandparents? Don't focus on yourself. That's selfish. Right? Or it's a lot of times it's not what somebody says to you, it's how they treat you. So one of the processes that I take my clients through is we determine, okay, where exactly did this belief come in? And was this because of something that somebody said or did? Or was it because, or did you pick it up empathetically, meaning you observed the behavior and you took it on yourself without knowing it? So we can take on these beliefs because of another person's behavior, like how they treat us. And let's face it, adults do not typically show the highest level respect for children. And it's just the conditioning of our society. Nobody means to act, most people don't mean to act that way, but it's just how we're conditioned. We're getting better with every generation. But these are generational patterns that you can wipe out in a matter of weeks. So that is basically what I wanted to share with you. We went a little bit over time because I just got so into this topic, and you guys had great comments and questions. Thank you so much for your comments and questions tonight. But do you have any more questions on this? Tomorrow, what are we doing tomorrow? Tomorrow we're going to talk about pulling the weeds so your garden can flourish. Okay, so tonight we talked about what are the real reasons we haven't been practicing the thriving behaviors. And tomorrow we're going to talk about how to actually get rid of those things, pull the frickin' weeds so that we can really start flourishing and thriving. And this should not be a chore. If your self-care feels like a chore, then you're doing it wrong. You still have those limiting beliefs. If your self-care feels like a chore, if you feel like you have to force it, then you're not in alignment yet with, with those habits. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me tonight. I had a lot of fun with you guys, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow's session, pulling the weeds. So think about that, and think about if you have any questions, and let me know. Bring your questions to our session tomorrow, and I can't wait to see you there.